Senior Director of Palomar Therapeutics. He's also Associate Professor at the University of Western Australia in Perth. Dr. Froh, thank you.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks for the opportunity to express some thoughts. I don't think I'm going to say anything which is new to most people, but perhaps I'll give it a bit of a different emphasis and provide a lead-off to the data-driven talks later in the session. Disclosure for myself and my colleague. Okay, I want to make 3 points. The first one is that blood safety will always constitute unpredictable, so-called non-linear events. I'll say what this means in a second, and able to fracture the transfusion safety paradigm at will. There's only so much we can do in predicting and in buttressing the traditional measures. Countering this through pathogen reduction, the plasma protein industry has reversed a historical profile over the past 20 years to make its products safer than transfusion components. This is a direct reversal of the situation prior to the 1980s, when plasma derivatives were notoriously able to transmit pathogens. And this is the result of pathogen reduction technologies, effective to varying extents, they're now available for components, and their speedy introduction is critical. This is some thinking from Willie Murphy. Some of you may know him. He's a transfusionist from Ireland, very great thinker in our field. Published extensively in the kind of philosophical stuff which turns me on anyway. And he published this thinking about blood safety some years ago, and he talked about linear and non-linear analysis. Basically, in terms of linear analysis, we can tell the future from the past, and we can't tell the future from the past when analysis is non-linear for non-deterministic chaotic events. He maintains that much of blood safety is underpinned by such non-predictable events. This is a slide. Everybody's had this slide. It just shows us what we all know, that due to globalization, we get more and more emerging and re-emerging and re-establishing infections year after year in ways which Stephen King, who's shown on this slide, would find very good in terms of their origin in relation to the plots for his science fiction and science fantasy novels. And in this slide from a review I wrote some years ago, I just summarized what was then the current thinking about the consideration of origin for HIV and variant CJD and West Nile virus, and you can see that the kind of scenarios which actually are thought to underpin these emergencies were probably, if postulated before the actual event, would have been considered to be fantasies. Non-predictable, non-linear. Now, this is a slide which is a composite of various bits of data from the CDC, and basically seeks to make a point which I made before, which is that as a result of this technology and no other, we have had this reversal between the differential safety between blood components and plasma derivatives. So that, in all honesty, nowadays, and this has been reiterated by many people, blood components are quote-unquote less safe on relative terms than plasma derivatives. You can see this for both the established and what 12 years ago was an emerging infection. And this is because of the traditional way that we do things in terms of selection and testing and screening of donors. In other words, is this as a result of having donors who are safer? I would contend that this is definitely not the case. It's the result of having very robust pathogen elimination techniques. And in terms of the question of linearity versus non-linearity, the development of pathogen reduction actually allows us a paradigm shift in terms of whether something is a non-linear to a linear process, because the introduction of robust pathogen inactivation technology for the plasma product sector has allowed predictability in terms of the safety through the use of both model and established viruses in the pathogen reduction techniques, in such a way that as new viruses have been introduced into the system and into the mainstream blood supply, these have not appeared in the chronic recipients of plasma products, which get exposed to hundreds of thousands of donors a year. This just shows the situation for one particular product, pasteurization, and this shows the situation for chikungunya virus in relation to plasma products by another established group of investigators. You can find these in the literature. I think they're very well-known types of studies. Now, I started off this thinking when I developed these slides some weeks ago, before the Ebola situation exploded, and I was thinking mostly in terms of chikungunya, looking at the measures, including what the AABB itself has proposed to the committee I was honored to serve on until this morning. And you know, we get the usual plethora of measures being proposed, the deferrals, testing, post-patient information, layering more and more complexity on the blood system, which in many countries, including this one, is in a fairly straitened situation in terms of resources and costs, in an attempt to exclude threats which are hypothetical or otherwise. This is taken from Harvey Alter at the Blood Safety Availability Committee some years ago, and he expressed the precautionary principle which has underpinned much of blood safety thinking over the past 20 years or so, that for situations of scientific uncertainty, the possibility of risk should be taken into account in the absence of proof. Harvey's corollary to this is that pathogen reduction is the ultimate precautionary principle by eradicating almost all potential for infectious disease transmission, even before risk has been conclusively established and possibly even before the agent has been recognized. I think this is the crucial point. We are overcoming non-linearity. This shows the situation for the two competitor technologies. I hold no brief for either of them, so I had to find a publication which compared both of them together. And you can see that there is considerable inactivation of chikungunya virus in apheresis platelets. The same situation occurs unquestionably in Ebola. Now, we're hearing a lot about Ebola, and the debate has really accelerated, the discussion has really accelerated with the possible use of convalescent plasma, for which, incidentally, the evidence base is relatively modest, but you know, when you're desperate, you do anything. But the important point is that we do have a situation here where these donors, so to speak, who are ex-patients, have been exposed to many other TTIs, which we can certainly do something about if we introduce pathogen inactivation of the plasma. I've come to the last slide. Now, I hear a lot about, but there's not enough muscle in the systems, they don't kill everything, they don't overcome the whole of the potential pathogen load, the viral load, and so on. I hear the excuses always given that we don't have them yet for red cells, and we've got them only for platelets and plasma. I do not think that this is an excuse for further inaction in this country, and of course, my words, I've said, directly related to the FDA. These systems are now firmly in place in many parts of the world. We haven't seen many patients drop dead because of them, and we are unquestionably protecting patients who receive the products where there is definite literature in Europe and other parts of the world of platelets and plasma. And we have trials ongoing which should be accelerated for the red cell and whole blood components. This quote from the book HIV and the Blood Supply is directly taken from the Institute of Medicine inquiry into the debacle which occurred when HIV entered the blood system in this country, and it says that where uncertainties or countervailing public health concerns preclude completely eliminating potential risk, the FDA should encourage and, where necessary, require the blood industry to implement partial solutions that have little risk of causing harm. And as Santayana says, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. We have a tradition in this industry for wanting universal solutions, universal glucoside reduction, universal pathogen inactivation. In the meantime, we also have a duty